everyone, welcome to another Music Talk Tuesday. I'm sorry this video had to be uploaded late. Unfortunately, a meeting went a little bit longer than I expected and it completely drained me. So I wanted to make sure that I could have the energy to make the videos, so I will be catching up to Wednesday's video today. So without further ado, for this music talk, I thought it would be interesting to briefly discuss my thoughts when it comes to voices. Voices and vocals are very important to music, especially nowadays, largely because lyrics are involved with a lot of songs, and a lot of artists nowadays are being more known for their vocal capabilities than they are their instrumental capabilities, which I find to be rather fascinating because it used to kind of be the exact opposite. But now it's kind of reared sort of a transition to where now artists are more focused on generating a certain kind of style of vocals, and in doing so, I guess, grasp some kind of demographic or audience from that, instead of focusing strictly, I think, on genre. Although I think genre has been generated to be more pop oriented now, considering the fact that when you look at a lot of pop artists, usually vocals are a little bit more emphasized than really what's going on with instrumentals. But basically, the interesting thing that I think to bring up when it comes to this topic is that they all sort of sound different, and they sort of have a unique identity to them. Unlike instruments that sort of produce certain sounds that we're all kind of familiar with, they just do it in different, ways. With vocals, you can almost get something that's completely unique because not everybody's voice really sounds exactly the same, and not everybody has the same kind of singing ranges or capabilities as others may have. So it really is what creates a lot of these different kinds of styles of singing through genre, through culture, and I think also time period as well. Because if you look back at maybe the 1930s, 40s, you'll notice how people sang a lot different than the way in which artists sing a lot nowadays, and even later on within the 70s and 80s. So it's really fascinating because it just shows you the kind of different genres in a way that's not only unique from an instrumental perspective, but also through a vocal perspective, which I think is important to understand. I think sometimes people might miss that because oftentimes we just think about how the instrumentals sound, but then we don't listen to how the different voices sound. For example, within the 1930s and 40s, the way in which women sang, they had a different perspective as far as what was considered kind of sensual, what was considered, beautiful. The sound was a little bit more squeakier. It was a little bit more high pitched. It was a lot like Betty Boop. But when you get later, the 80s or 70s, even 60s, you'll notice how there's sort of a gradual shift as far as tone is concerned, in which the way the singing is sort of expressed. So again, if you really do kind of look at, just start listening to different things, you'll kind of see where I'm coming from as far as understanding the different kinds of styles in which people have sang over the years. And not only are the vocals a focal point to the whole to a whole particular song or album or artist, but they're also kind of the make and break of an artist. Even those who have very good instrumentals, sometimes the voice maybe doesn't gel right for some viewers, or, well, listeners technically, and that kind of just turns people off from really enjoying it. And I can definitely see that, because I think people just have certain ways in which they interpret the sounds. Like they'll say, "Oh, that sounds too nasally. That sounds not that the person singing doesn't enunciate the words the way I like the words to be enunciated." All of those things that tie into the vocals can be either a huge benefit and can really get you invested into a particular artist, or the vocals can completely deter you from even really enjoying uh, the whole uh, artist, or even album, or even sometimes maybe even genre as well. For example, when the vocalists oftentimes within metal music, they'll scream and I don't hear what they're saying. It kind of turns me off, because I'm like, what's this song supposed to mean? What's even going on? What's supposed to be ultimately expressing? And a lot of the times it just feels like it's expressing that same emotion of anger. And I kind of don't understand, why, there can't be kind of a variety of emotions, or at least when it's trying to express something, express it in a way in which I can understand it. So that's just something that's really a preference. But I think we all have these kinds of preferences when it comes to the voices and how they pronounce and how they sing the various words. And not only do you have the basics of being either a soprano, alto, bass, or tenor, you also have the emotions that are behind the words. What I think in general the artists I enjoy the most are the ones that really express the emotions for when they're singing about something, and sort of, it's like they're telling a story. It's almost like they're even acting at a certain point. They're expressing what's the intentions behind, what are the intentions behind the song. They're accentuating the meanings and messages that can come from the song. So oftentimes I think that it definitely shows the effort that's put in when you do feel like that the artist is trying to give you an understanding of the way they kind of perceive the song, and the way they perceive the sort of moments of the song that express the various emotions. So I think that's also something that's very important to note, which I think does take a certain amount of skill. Oftentimes I think, in particular, vocalists are kind of looked down upon, because people automatically think, oh, there's good and then there's bad singers. And although you could probably classify, the ones that are, you could probably distinguish between the two, I think, largely, especially if you look like shows like American Idol, who have done the same thing over and over again. You can sort of tell, like, yeah, this person has vocal capabilities and the other doesn't. But for the most part, it's really about how that singing is expressed. I mean, you can be a good singer, but then maybe not have but not express a certain kind of emotion throughout the entire song. I mean, you could sing every note right, but then there's nothing beyond that. And I think that's something oftentimes people miss, and I think even a lot of mainstream artists sort of miss today is they don't really bring out a lot of, um, they don't really, there's not a whole lot of thinking going into the singing, I think, a lot of the times, and as a result, it just kind of feels very standard. And also with everything that's being auto-tuned up the walls, obviously that's also playing a pivotal role as far as vocals are concerned. So it only makes sense that there would, I think, be some kind of genericness, at least going on right now, uh, as far as not really taking the vocal sort of art form seriously. And I think too, sometimes people just have some people have the ability to sing and then others don't. But I think also it comes too with practice. I mean, I think people can become good at it. I just think that sometimes, a lot of the times people um, may not be as invested in singing, or maybe they're not as interested in singing. They would rather play an instrument or something, and that's totally fine. Um, but I think it's important to treat this as much of an art form as a other instrument, because your voice is an instrument, and it constantly plays every single day. Even though you're not singing, you're obviously still talking. So and it's something that you come used to, and you kind of train your voice in a certain way and how you present yourself. So I think it only makes sense that that would sort of come with, um, sort of understanding the art. And I think some people might not be much invested into that as others, which is totally fine and I think makes sense. Um, and but at the same time, I think overall, the vocals that are behind uh, a music project, whether it be a musical, whether it be a opera, whether it be a choir, and whether it be a band or a particular pop star artist, there's obviously a lot of ways into which um, the vocals are ultimately expressed, whether it be through a group or whether it be through just one person. But I think at the end of the day, there is a certain, I think, amount of passion that goes into it, and I'll find myself really enjoying singing because I think it's a very good escape mechanism, at least for me. Maybe similar to some people who find escapism through instrumental uh, music. I often find that through being able to sing my favorite songs in the car and such. That's very enjoyable for me, and it feels just kind of liberating in a way. There's nobody else around. It's just you, and you're just kind of letting out all of your energy, and that's why I find in particular singing so enjoyable, and um, using my voice as a means of, I guess, expression in a way. But yeah, those are really ultimately all my thoughts when it comes to this particular topic. However, if there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.